I thought I was honoring my family when I hung the poem by Charles Arden Russell, my great-great-great-grandfather, in my den. My mom found it in the family papers my granny, Happy Wiley, had preserved. Mom hired a calligrapher to copy it in elegant script, had it framed, and gave it to me as a gift. Years later, while researching our family history, I found two sentences buried on page 9 of Charlie's biography. He frequently took part of his fees for services in land, traded successfully in land, and invested his surplus earnings in negroes. Although he had few slaves working for him, he profited by hiring out the slaves to others who needed them. I read the sentences again and again. Invested his surplus earnings in negroes. I had spent decades as an environmental lawyer, fighting corporations that treated regular folks as expendable. I convinced myself I was one of the good guys, and here was my ancestor treating human beings as investments. I walked to the den, stood in front of his framed poem, read his words. The line of right is the limit of a good man's action. What line of right was he thinking about when he invested in black people? Years later, I decided that if Charlie's face was going to haunt me, I'd put it where everyone could see it. The photograph on my Substack avatar is him, not to honor him, but to face what he did. I'm inviting you to face it with me. I hadn't just inherited keepsakes. I'd inherited a story. Story decides who gets honored and who gets erased. My family's story honored Charlie. It erased the people he bought and sold. My family's story said Charlie was a pioneer, a founder, a music lover, and a devoted father. That story shrugged off what he did with his surplus earnings. Charles Arden Russell was smart, ambitious, and skilled. He helped expand the Texas frontier at the expense of native peoples, helped found Helena and Karnes County, practiced law, surveyed land, and built both furniture and homes. He was a devoted father who pushed for his children's education, rare on the frontier. As a lawyer myself, I cherished the idea that I had followed in Charlie's footsteps, until I came to grips with the fact that he bought, sold, and leased human beings. Charlie grew up and was educated in New York, which abolished slavery in 1827 when he was just 5 years old. By the time he arrived in Texas at age 23, he had been exposed his entire life to the notion that slavery was wrong and should be illegal. Charlie chose to settle his young family in the slave state of Texas anyway. Here you see the U.S. Census slave schedules for 1850, when Charlie was still in his 20s, and 1860. Those schedules don't even list the enslaved people's names, only their age, their gender, and their race, black or mulatto, code for someone born from a rape. Charlie wasn't only an enslaver and trader. He also helped lead the Knights of the Golden Circle, a secret paramilitary organization devoted to preserving and expanding slavery. As chair of the KGC's military committee, Charlie designed a home police to suppress, quote, servile insurrection. In May 1861, just after Texas had entered the Civil War, a group of Knights of the Golden Circle in San Antonio burned down the Alamo Express newspaper building because the newspaper's editor and publisher had mocked the Knights and expressed pro-union, anti-secession sentiment. That newspaper editor fled to Mexico on threat of lynching. At the time, my ancestor was the Adjutant General of the Knights of the Golden Circle, the head of their paramilitary operations. It's almost certain that he played a part in burning down that newspaper and chasing its publisher out of the country. In Texas and elsewhere, early organized policing grew from slave patrol systems, and Charlie's home police sat in that lineage. When I connect those dots forward, the image that has haunted me is my great-great-great-grandfather in modern gear, enforcing the same logic with his knee on the neck of a black man. Control first, humanity last. Laws and institutions don't appear from nowhere. They're built from the foundation of a story. I'm talking to you in 2025. Police violence against Black people remains an American epidemic. The core concept of Charlie's home police, treating Black bodies as threats to be controlled, echoes in every viral video, every hashtag, every family's grief.
My maternal grandmother, Happy Wiley, loved family history. Our family is privileged to have so much preserved: biographies, letters, journals, artifacts, photos, Charlie's included. His son Lyman, the biographer, was a devoted genealogist who traced lines of our family back for centuries, and later generations added even more.
Granny spent hundreds of hours sifting and arranging, and late in her life she made scrapbooks for each of her children, including my mom, Nancy. My family has also celebrated Charles Arden Russell's legacy by preserving his name. We've honored him by keeping his name alive. 5 generations of Russells, first names and middle names. By long tradition, my family has cherished and honored Charles Arden Russell, consciously or not. I've learned that love and harm can travel in the same family heirlooms. In 2016, I retired from my law practice and began writing about my grandmother Happy, the keeper of our family history. I thought I was writing a loving tribute. Then in 2018, a friend invited me to join a racial equity task force at my church. For the first time in my life, I learned how racist systems actually worked and how I had benefited from them. That's when I looked back at Happy's scrapbooks with different eyes. The ancestors she celebrated: colonizers, enslavers. One was a slave trader. I wanted to look away, to make excuses, to say that was just the way things were. But I couldn't, because in 2019, my son Ben married Faith, who is Black. Now I have 3 Black grandchildren. This history isn't back then. It's sitting at my dinner table. In early 2025, I attended a retreat in Washington State. During a meditation by a river, I had what I can only describe as a mystical encounter with the earth itself. In the middle of this peaceful meditation, a sudden moment of shame overcame me about the harm that I and we have done to the earth. Plunder and ravage, pollute, consume, and discard. Repeat. But just as equally as this shame came upon me, I felt a warmth envelop me from below. The presence told me, I've got this, and I've got you. That weekend, something opened up in me. The next week, I started writing a book. The words poured through me. I'm calling the book Healing White History: Courageous Conversations with My Ancestors, because I spent decades ignorant of how my family fit into slavery, genocide against Native people, and Jim Crow. I'm reckoning with that truth and asking what repair looks like now. Each week, the Substack contains either excerpts from the book or other related content. In this series, I hold conversations with my ancestors. Charlie goes first.
I confront my ancestors because stories build identities and drive systems, and my family's story helped build systems that still harm people today. In this book, I tell the truth about my ancestors with receipts. The conversations demonstrate how imagination can make these hard truths more personal and therefore more real. At the same time, these visits with dead family members offer healing. They help me recognize the spots in my own thoughts and behavior where I've inherited not only genetics, but also a toxic story. They help me metabolize grief and shame into responsibility.
This is not just about feeling better. It's about repair. 2 months after starting the first draft of the manuscript, 45,000 words in, I realized that I was following the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation framework. Tell the truth, heal what the story broke, transform and repair what the story built. I'm still learning. The framework helps, but the writing and the accountability it demands keeps me honest. I'm committing 100% of my net author royalties to descendant and native-led repair, connected to these histories. Journey through healing white history has been one of the most powerful transformative experiences of my life. My hope is that other white folks can use my experience as a template for healing and repair based on their own family histories around race. Before I go, I want to share one of the core quotes that inspired me to do this project. It's by Bryan Stevenson, civil rights lawyer, activist, and the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative. We need to reckon with our history of racial injustice. The great evil of American slavery wasn't the involuntary servitude. It was the fiction that Black people aren't as good as white people. If my project resonates for you, and if you want to help overwrite the false stories of race and white superiority, then there are 3 things I'd ask you to do. First, please subscribe to my Substack. The link is on the screen and in the comments. Read my posts and engage with the community. Quite a few folks have already shared powerful stories about their own ancestors. Leave your own comment. Second, share that link with anyone who you think might also connect with the work. Building the Substack community will help me find a publisher for my book. And third, if you're white, take the plunge yourself. Within the next few weeks, I'll be posting a step-by-step guide for confronting your own ancestors. I can't promise what that experience will be like for you, but for me, this process has led to powerful healing, transformation, and repair. I hope and believe it can do the same for at least some of you. And for any Black, Indigenous, or other people of color watching this, thank you. Thank you for your patience with yet another white person centering himself while talking about race. I know that can be tiresome or even painful or traumatic at times. If my work does any of that to you, regardless of how you racially identify, I am very sorry. But I hope and believe this work will, on the whole, be far more healing than harmful. Peace.